Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Denmark once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, and I would say that this brewery really is just a very solid all-round one. They like to try lots of different styles, and when they do that, they always tend to produce something pretty damn good in my experience. Now, the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I haven't had from them before. It's a style that I very much enjoy, very good for the winter season, and this beer is also going to be both the strongest and the first barrel-aged beer that I've tried from this brewery. So kind of interesting from those two perspectives, I think. But needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. It's always nice to return to this brewery, so hopefully this is another good one. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to the Djursland Peninsula, which is around the sort of Aarhus and Randers area on Jylland, the mainland part of Denmark that's attached to Germany, and we're going to go to the little village of Ebeltoft and have a look at another beer from Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri, or Ebeltoft Farm Brewery as it would be in English. So this beer is simply called Barley Wine. It is the Fadlaget version, which means barrel aged. It comes in at 11% ABV, and I think from the name you can gather what style this beer is. But yeah, this one caught my eye. I bought this beer in Kiosk over in Copenhagen, one of my favourite beer stores. And yeah, it was just simply the fact it was barrel aged, it was a barley wine, and I hadn't had something from Ebeltoft for quite a wee while. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. Always nice to try the new beers from Ebeltoft, so hopefully this is as good as the other ones we've had before. I think the last beer we tried from this brewery was their Imperial Stout. I'm pretty sure that wasn't barrel aged though, but that was pretty damn nice. But again, I think this is the strongest beer we might have had from this brewery as well. But yeah, anyway, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri before, and we will no doubt add more to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and use the geography-based tagging system to find beer. Go into the homepage and use the little search bar, put in your hometown, city, county, state, whatever you like, and if I've reviewed beers from your area, they will pop up, and you can also check out the playlist of beers from different countries. This one is in the Danish playlist, and that is being added to very regularly, of course, because I live in Skåne in the south of Sweden, and Copenhagen is just over the water, and I love my Danish beers. But anyway, let's go on to the brewery notes then to chat a little bit about Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri. So, as I've mentioned to you already, Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri is based on a farm in Ebeltoft on the Djursland Peninsula, which is close to Randers and Aarhus in the Mid-Jylland region, which is the middle of the kind of main peninsula of Denmark, Jylland. And I do apologise for any bad Danish pronunciations in this video. I probably pronounced these words with the Swedish pronunciation, but there we go. But anyway, the owner of this brewery is Peder Zacho Hansen. He was originally a mechanical engineer, but he decided to become a brewer, having done a lot of home brewing, and he's completely self-taught from what I understand. But as the name suggests, this brewery is in an old farm complex. It's been converted, and it's based just on the edge of the Mols Bjerge National Park. And the company itself was founded back in 2008, and they've been gradually expanding over the last few years. They got very popular in their local area, and then their beers spread further and further out across Denmark. And of course, they've made it all the way to Copenhagen, which is where I found them. But in addition to beer, this company also produces cider, bottled water and lemonades, and Peder's brother Christian also works with the company importing coffee as well. But the brewery has a small cafe on site where you can drink the beers and enjoy the views of the Kattegat, which is of course the sea between Denmark in the west and Sweden in the east, famous of course for the Vikings. But this is very beautiful apparently, and if you look at the brewery website you can see a little video of the farm complex and them preparing the brew pub for people to come. It usually opens on Fridays and Saturdays, but during the winter months and things, they open it a little bit more, and in the summer as well, actually. But like I said earlier, these guys are a very solid all-round brewery in my experience. We've had some really nice New England IPAs from them, some very true-to-style German lagers as well. Recently we had the Imperial Stout, and now we've got the barley wine, and I do have high expectations for this one. But as of November 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 250 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and the current head brewer is Ben Howe, who is from the US. They did have another brewer before him actually, who really put the brewery on the map with the Raw Power New England IPA, and I believe that was the first beer that I actually reviewed from this brewery, and then I started trying the other ones after that. But yeah, like I say, these guys do very solid beers, whatever style they try. Probably the ones I've been most impressed with were the lagers, because of how true they were to the style, like how close they were to the German and Czech examples of the style. So yeah, definitely a brewery you want to check out if you're into just trying different kinds of beer and familiarising yourself with different styles. But yeah, that, as I say, is all I can really tell you about Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, again, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer or Untappd pages to learn more about all the different beers, or you can go and check out some of my older reviews. I think we reviewed the first beer from these guys back in about 2017, maybe 2018 or so. But yeah, let's crack on then and have a wee look at this guy itself. So, as you can see, the artwork on this one is kind of similar to what we've seen from Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri in the past. If we bring this right up, you can see the little medieval symbol there, which is kind of cool. That is also on the bottle cap for this one. You can see the distinctive orange Ebeltoft bottle cap with this one. It doesn't actually say what kind of barrels this one has been aged in, and it doesn't say anything. I couldn't find anything on the website about this or on the Untappd page actually. But I'm guessing it might be bourbon barrels. You know, it's probably bourbon barrels or maybe cognac or sherry barrels or something like that. We'll need to see. We can probably tell from the aroma. But yeah, 330 milliliter bottle, this one, and as I said, I bought this one at Kiosk in Copenhagen. So yeah, barrel-aged barley wine, 11% ABV. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see. So our very first barley wine and our very first barrel-aged beer from Ebeltoft. But as you can see, a little bit of smoke coming out of this one as we open up the bottle. But let's get it out into the glass and see how we go. Oh, I have to say this does look pretty damn nice. And you can tell straight away from the colour of this one, this has probably had quite a long wort boil. So, there we are. This is going to be a monster, I'll tell you that. So, yeah, there we are. It's nice and lined up. My OCD is happy. And we can have a wee look at the beer itself. So before the head disappears on this one, we can see that it's poured with about 1/3 of a finger of a frothy, kind of fawn coloured head. Quite a few nice little bubbles along the side of it there, and a few bigger ones going toward the top of the head. But you can see it's kind of fading away to be just a very, very thin foamy layer on the top. But we'll get a nice ring around the edge of the glass anyway. But you can have a wee quick look at that. There you can see a mix of the kind of smaller bubbles and the bigger ones there. But I have to say with this beer, this is definitely one of the darker barley wines that I've come across in recent times. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour beer. This plays quite a big role when it comes to the big brown sugary beers such as Scotch ales, doppelbocks, barley wines. So you need to pay attention to that as well. But any barrel aging that you do and any adjuncts that you put into these beers can also affect them. But yeah, it's, that's debatable whether that's going to happen with a barley wine. But from the colour of this one, I will say, when we shine the light through this beer is actually quite clear. It's not really hazy or anything like that at all. So I do think this one has potentially been filtered before it's gone into the barrels, because it has this lovely, it's got this lovely kind of edge, like ruby sort of edge to it. So I'm not sure how well you guys are going to see that on the camera, but this beer is definitely kind of chestnutty in colour, but with a lovely kind of ruby edge to it. So yeah, dark mahogany chestnut type colour, a little bit of a ruby edge to it, and yeah, pretty crystal clear. Not much in the way of visible carbonation in this one, but a few little ones, a few little bubbles going up toward the surface of the beer there. So yeah, I do like how this how this beer goes together in that sense. Nothing really surprising about the appearance of this one, but certainly one of the darker barley wines that I've come across in recent times. So yeah, let's have a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what we have. Very curious. Oh yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this smells pretty damn good. Yeah, you've got the sweetness that you want from this beer style, you've got a little bit of the hoppiness, and you've got the lovely red fruits, but you also have that you've got that lovely little bit of woodiness from the barrels as well. I think this is bourbon barrel aged. You can kind of tell from the aroma, I'm pretty sure this is bourbon barrel aged. You just have that sweet American bourbon whiskey sort of thing coming out of this one. But yeah, I'm going to say straight away, this does smell very, very nice. I would be very curious to try the non-barrel aged one, but I'm pretty sure it was only the barrel aged one that they had in Kiosk, although I don't know if I actually paid that much attention to that when I bought it, to be honest with you. I think I just saw Ebeltoft barley wine and was like, yeah, have one of those. But anyway, this beer does smell very, very nice. Quite an old school one, and that's one of the things I would say about the Ebeltoft beers is you will get very, very solid beers, but they are more old school when it comes to things like this. But it works. It really works. Yeah, let's break the aroma of this one down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of the beer, as I've kind of intimated before, is that smooth American oak. You get a little touch of vanilla out of that, and then you've got all these kind of bourbon sugars to this one. The other thing it could be, there is a chance it could be cognac barrel aged, because it has quite a lot of the dry fruity characters to it as well. So I'm pretty sure it's bourbon, but if it was cognac barrel aged, that wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you. So I'm sort of 80% sure it's bourbon, but as I say, it could be cognac in this one. Doubting myself now. But yeah, lovely smooth American oak in this one. As I've always said, for me, European oak is that little bit drier than American oak. But yeah, you've got that little touch of vanilla in there, quite a bit of a bourbon or cognac-y sort of sugary note sitting on top of that. You can smell the spirit for sure. And then on top of that, you start to get all the big brown sugary notes out of this beer. You have got a little element of kind of bready character to this one. You have this sort of sticky, oily, almost like rye bready note to it, but it's almost kind of like a brandy soaked fruit loaf in some ways as well. You've got a lot of that kind of character with this beer. It's almost cakey in a sense. You've got one or two little nutty undertones to the beer as well, and that's mixing in with this kind of fruit loafy, bready character that I was talking about with the beer. And then above that, you get all the big brown sugars in this one. Now, you can tell with this beer, both from looking at it and from the aroma, this has had quite a long wort boil. You do get a nice little bit of that leathery, brown sugary character in this one. You can really smell that in the beer, and the fact that the colour is darker as well, that tells you that this is, it's barley wines tend to be boiled for at least 6 hours. The wort has a very long wort boil, but you can do it for even longer. But you can smell that nice leathery brown sugary note to this one. There is a good little bit of sweet caramel in there. You've also got the treacle and molasses, and you have little notes of kind of like McVitie's digestive biscuit with this beer as well. But it's quite an oily and sweet caramel character in there with the treacle and molasses and the more leathery brown sugars underneath. I do like how all of this goes together actually aroma-wise. The malty side of this beer is really, really nice. The more that you sugar up the beer, you start to get little elements of kind of grainy bread and sort of cakey characters out of it, but it certainly does work very, very well. Yeah. On the hoppy side of things with this beer then, the green component is still quite present in this one, so I don't think this beer is that old actually. And of course, with a barley wine, you can age it for a pretty damn long time and it's still going to taste very nice. This one says, I think best before the 8th of the 7th 2025, so yeah, I'm guessing this one was maybe bottled in sort of July of this year, probably 3 years. It seems like a reasonable amount of time, and I hadn't seen this beer before. I go into Chios quite regularly. I hadn't seen this one, so I'm guessing it was perhaps bottled in the summer of this year. But yeah, so the hoppy character on this one is still there. It didn't say how long it's been barrel aged for, so you have to remember this when it comes to the green component. A lot of the hops, the hops will have dropped out of it to a degree. But I still find it's got a wee bit of green component. I think this is using some kind of classic hop. Maybe it's a bit hard to tell with this one whether it's going to be more of an American barley wine or an English barley wine, because it has characteristics of both. But the green component, certainly you've got a little bit of earthiness in there, a little bit of herbal character, and then you've got like a wet floral and grassy component at the front of the nose with this beer. When it comes to the fruity side of things, this beer, it's got some of the brightness that you would expect of the fruits from an American barley wine. You've got a bit of the raisin, you've got a good little bit of plum in there, but underneath that you start to get the more dry notes that are more akin to the English barley wine. You've got the prunes, the dates, and a little bit of the oily fig. I certainly get a wee bit of black currant out of this one as well, maybe a little bit of blackberry. But yeah, the fruity notes in this one they've got a little bit of English character, but certainly a wee bit more American. And for me, the main difference between the American and English barley wine would be the level of sweetness. So the American ones tend to be very oily in their brown sugary character, and they've got those oily juicy fruits. The English ones have a wee bit of toastiness to them, and the fruits tend to lean toward that more dry, datey, pruny, kind of figgy type character. So we need to see how this beer actually comes across in the flavour, but aroma wise it does smell very, very nice. As I always say, take a wee bit of time to ponder that over before you actually taste the beer, but I think it is time that we have a try of this one and see what we've got. So yeah, this one is the barley wine Fadlaget from Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri on the Jursland Peninsula, just on Ebeltoft farm, as we should say, near Aarhus and Randers over in Denmark. Let's get stuck in. An 11%, I think, bourbon or maybe cognac barrel aged barley wine, this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Looking forward to this. Oh yeah. That is pretty damn good. Yeah. That's a lovely barley wine, this one. When I did have a wee look at the Untappd page earlier on, because I was trying to see what it had been aged in and so on, it had a rating of 4, which is pretty good. I mean, this brewery is always very, very solid. This one is rated, I think the original barley wine is rated like 3.8, and this one is rated 4, and that's potentially one of the best rated beers I think I've had from this brewery. But just tasting it, you can see why. I always say take a bit of, take Untappd with a pinch of salt. But yeah, this one I think is really, really this is an awesome barley wine. I've only had one sip of it, but I can tell you this is worth trying if you come across it. It's very reasonably priced as well. You will get beers from other craft breweries that are not as good as this and more expensive. But this, I think, what did I pay for this? Maybe 60 Danish kroner. That's about 80 Swedish, so about €8. Something like that, £7.50, $9 American. This one, for the quality of barley wine that you're getting here, this is really damn good. It's obviously 330 millilitres rather than 440 as you often get these days, but still, this is absolutely worth it. Very nicely done beer, so big thumbs up to Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri here. Gives you everything you want. You've got the big sweetness, the fruitiness, the breadiness, and you've got the barrel in there too. I like this. Awesome stuff. So, where do we start with this? Middle third of your palate with this beer. You absolutely get that nice, smooth American oak quality in there. It is really, really nice. I'm pretty sure from the flavour of this one, I'm still, it is either bourbon or it's cognac barrel aged. I'm really, with the flavour, I'm actually leaning more towards saying that it's cognac barrel aged, to be honest with you. It could be a blend of the two right enough, but yeah, whatever it is, the barrel aging's working really, really well. But yeah, backbone of the beer, smooth, oaky character there. As you move toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of vanilla type note within the wood there, and then above that you get that kind of thin layer of the spirit. And like I say, there's a few American bourbon type qualities in there, but there's further forward on the palate, it does give more of the impression of a a sort of cognac character in there. So yeah, there's a wee bit more fruitiness to the spirit in there as well. But above all of that, you get the nice big bready notes. Yeah. So the bready notes for me they're not too big in this beer. And the one thing you have to remember is that when you barrel age a beer, you're always going to sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel to get these kind of woody infused flavours. And quite often brewers will compensate for this if they know a beer is going to be barrel aged. This one, it's very thick in the beginning, but I think it feels very clean at the same time. So it's not the thickest and stickiest of barley wines that we've come across. And for that reason, the sort of bready layer that you have, you've got a little kind of smattering of bread crust in this one. So that sits there above the spirit. And then you get a little bit of that kind of sweet, sort of brandy soaked brown bread in this one as well. So you can feel that layer is there. And it has, toward the back of the middle third of your palate, it's almost a little bit more kind of cakey in a sense, but as you come further forward, you get more of the kind of brandy and the fruity side of things with that breadiness. And above all of that, you start to get the big brown sugars out of the beer. So we'll look at that now. One other thing I would say is that within that bready layer, you start to get little elements of nuttiness, and they come out a wee bit more the further that you go into the aftertaste. But what the bready part of this beer does is it makes like a kind of bowl in the middle of your palate. It gives you this kind of bowl thing, and within that bowl lie the brown sugars. So if we go to the top, because they're all very layered, in the dead centre of your palate, you get that big, sweet, oily caramel. That sits there. Then as you move a little bit further out from that and go deeper, you get more of the kind of treacle, molasses sort of thing. And then underneath all of that, you've got the more oily and leathery brown sugars. So the leathery brown sugars form the base, the treacle and molasses comes out a bit further up, and then you've got the sweeter caramel sitting on top of all of that. So yeah, that's really quite nice with this one, I have to say. The interesting thing about this beer when I try it though is that it's the brown sugars and the aroma. One thing you get in the aroma is that the brown sugars are quite leathery. You don't get so much of that in the flavour. They're actually a lot more kind of oily and sweet in comparison to what you might think. So yeah, the way that this goes together is pretty nice in that sense. So yeah, I think that covers everything we really need to say about the middle third of the palate in this beer. It's really very straight shooting, this barley wine. Doesn't do anything surprising, but it's just nicely made. And you can't go wrong with that, I have to say. Yeah, so let's look at the back third of the palate then. So the border region between back third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of that bready build up there. Again, it's almost like a kind of sweet rye bread, but you've got a little bit of an almost honeycomb type flavour in there too. And then the base of the back third of your palate, you've got more of the smooth oaky character. It feels a little bit drier. You can feel the spirit there as well, as a little bit almost more kind of toasty and things. And then the bready layer, the bread crust comes out a little bit more. Then you've got the sweet, you've got a sweet sort of almost rye bready layer. Then you've got the more kind of brandy soaked wholemeal fruit loaf type layer as well. So you can feel that there. Above all of that, you get the more yeasty elements coming out of the beer. So it's a very airy, honeycomb-like bready note that's in there from the yeast. Yeah. So yeah, on top of that kind of brandy soaked bread, you get a really airy, as I say, you get a really airy light farmhousey type brown bread, a little bit of honeycomb and toasty brown sugar, almost very slightly woody and nutty and things as well. So you can feel all these yeasty flavours sitting on top of that back third of your palate. But definitely, the back third of your palate, the flavour is a lot taller than as you come forward into the middle third of your palate. The flavours just sort of squash together that little bit more. Yeah, this, as I say, the barrel and the wood and the malty side of this beer and the yeasty side as well are just very nicely done. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So, as I said, with this beer, you still have a little bit of hoppiness lingering in it, but you can feel that this beer has aged a little bit and a good bit of it has dropped out, but it's still there. Back corners of the palate, you can get a little bit of an earthy dryness there, and as you move further forward, there are little hints of a herbal quality, but then as you push further forward, you can feel a nice wetness on the sides of your palate. The beer's got a little bit of a more kind of floral aromatic sort of thing to it as you reach the front corners of the palate, but not really spicy, quite a wet floral aromaticity. But then round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy and a little touch zesty in a way as well. So that's certainly quite nice in this one. You do get a little bit of that zesty, grassy character there, but at the same time, it's like a wet, freshly cut grass that you get out of that. And obviously, the longer that you kind of age this beer, the more the hops are going to drop out of that. So you need to bear that in mind with this one too. So anyway, on to the front third of your palate and the fruity side of things then. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of that bready build up again. And as I was describing earlier, this beer has that really kind of like brandy soaked fruit loaf, fruit roll, fruit cake kind of thing to it. It really has that. This beer is all about the big brown sugar. So you can feel that in this one. The base of the front third of your palate, you get a little bit of the smooth woody character, you get a wee bit of the vanilla in there, then you get the smooth, a little bit of the bread crust. But on top of all of that, you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. And I would say, before we get onto the fruits, I would say this beer is a little bit more like an American barley wine on the malty and yeasty side of things, but the fruity side of this beer is actually a lot more, it's kind of somewhere in the middle of the English and the American style. I think the fruity side actually maybe leans a bit more toward the English side of things than the American. But yeah, so when you take this beer in, you are going to get a little bit of raisiny sharpness at the back of that front third of your palate. And then yeah, as you go down from there, you get a little bit more of the plum. You start to maybe get, and as you go further down, this is very layered on the back half of that front third of your palate. So you've got the raisin, you've got the juicy plum, then you start to get the dry prunes and a little bit of a datey character, and underneath that you're getting the sort of sultana, you know, the dry white green grapey notes to this one. And as you move further forward into the middle of that front third of your palate, you get the juicy figs, and then into the front half you start to get a little bit of a black curranty flavour. On top of that, on the front half, I think there's a little bit of blackberry in there. So yeah, a little bit of blackcurrant, nice little bit of blackberry. Yeah, I think the further into the aftertaste you go, you get both the blackberry and blackcurrant coming out more, giving you the juicy side of things, but you've also got the really dry fruity characters lingering there as well, and they become a little bit more potent. And this is why I'm saying the fruity side of the beer I think leans more toward the English dry fruity side of things, but the body, the malty base and the barrel and things like that really make it more of an American barley wine rather than anything else. And it makes sense if the brewer is American that's like that. But I'd be very curious to know what hop they've used in this one. Maybe they've used a mix. You know, some hops that would go well with this would be Bramling's Cross from England. Of course, you can use like Cascade and Chinook for an American style barley wine. Northern Brewer from Germany, which is commonly used in Doppelbock, would give you these fruity characters as well. I'd be very curious to know what the hop bill is in this beer. Just, you know, to see where these fruits and things are coming from. I love learning about different hops and things. But like I say, fruity character is a bit more English than American for me, but the body of the beer, the malty side of things, is more akin to an American barley wine. But whatever it is, the main question should always be, is it a good beer? And absolutely the answer with this one is yes. Let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, it's top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. It's a very slick, oily mouthfeel that you get out of this beer, but at the same time, I find this one quite clean, and it's certainly not the thickest of barley wines that I've come across. It's actually one of the lighter ones I can say that I've had in recent times. But that certainly doesn't take anything away from the flavour. It's got this lovely, you know, you've got everything you would want from the beer. You've got the woodiness, you've got a bit of the spirit in there, you've got the lovely kind of bready characters from the big brown sugars. This beer doesn't show you much toastiness and dryness. It really is a big oily thing more than anything else. In terms of IBUs, I don't think this beer has much of that, to be honest with you. So I could, you know, it's quite hard to give you an IBU count. It's maybe about 20 or 30 or something like that at the absolute most. But yeah, IBU count on this beer is really quite low. You can get barley wines that are a lot more bitter than this. Barrel aging, of course, as we say, takes away a lot of that. And the longer you leave this beer, of course, the hops will drop out. But the fruitiness in this beer is really nice. Some nice dry, fruity characters, and also the big kind of sweet, oily sort of things, and juiciness out of this beer. But I think Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri have produced a really, really nice beer in this one, with this one. So gets a big, big thumbs up from me. Certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. But of course, you know, a barrel-aged barley wine, this is the sort of beer that you try once and share with friends, and you're not going to be disappointed by this one, I'll tell you that. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. So this was the barley wine Fadlaget barrel-aged from Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri. I'm still not sure whether it's bourbon or cognac. The more that I drink of this beer, the more I'm leaning toward the cognac side of things because of those dry, fruity characters. I think this could be a cognac barrel-aged barley wine, and it's beautiful. Really is very nice. So yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri as well, and we will return to these guys at some point in the near future. We'll need to see what other random styles we can find from these guys. I would love to see them do a Scotch ale. I love trying Scotch ales from different parts of the world, of course. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching. Check out my social media. Check out Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri social media. Let me know your favourite beers from these guys. Let me know some other Danish breweries I need to check out. And do let me know some of your favourite barley wines as well. But till the next time, Fadlaget Skål. Cheers. Make sure you check out this one. 11%, it's a bit dangerous. I can feel it going to my head, so we'll end the video there. Fadlaget Skål. Cheers. See you guys on the next one. Make sure you check out Ebeltoft GårdBryggeri from Midtjylland in Denmark. Cheers.